Today is an extremely special day. I am so honored to be here with Cheryl Cook, Senior Vice President at Dell Technology. Cheryl, thank you so much for taking the time during this busy conference weekend at Women of the Channel East. Thank you for being here.
Oh, thanks for having me. I'm happy to do it.
And we're going to talk about something that's kind of near and dear to my heart. And before we jump in, though, I thought that I would ask Cheryl a little bit about how did you get to where you are today? In other words, what's a little bit about your story?
Oh my gosh, it's funny. Like you said, we all just don't arrive here. So how did I get in tech is probably the right question. And I would say a big influencer and motivator for me was my dad. I'm a Florida Gator, grew up in Florida, but I was in Florida because my dad was in the space program. So he was an engineer on all the Apollo missions. And I think motivated me or inspired me just in the way of technology. And at the time I was going into school, he said, hey, this computers, because he worked with a lot of them, obviously, in his missions, but computers were really beginning to take off. And I know that was probably what steered me, and I kind of haven't looked back since. So kind of an interesting factor, but I'm definitely a daddy's girl, and I think he was a huge influence. Yeah.
That's so amazing. So what is one thing that he really instilled? He must have really believed in you, because he didn't say, oh, these computers are coming out and they're for boys.
Yeah.
I mean, he probably said these are coming out and they're cutting edge. And
well, a huge factor, and I know we talk about this also with younger girls. He was always a big supporter and encouraging me in, he would tell us, you can do anything you want. You can be anybody. You can do anything, and at the time, I think because he was in the space program, I think there's a famous quote. It wasn't his, but he reused it often, that says, you need to shoot for the stars, and if you fall a little short, or shoot for the moon, and if you fall a little short, you're among all the stars. So he was a big dreamer, very entrepreneurial kind of personality. And I think definitely kind of instilled that in my two sisters and I, and definitely pushed me like, you can do anything, go for it. So I always had that level of encouragement. And whenever there was doubt or self-doubt, like I moved to Dallas, where I live now, right out of college. I was 21, moved across the country, and I was a little apprehensive about doing it. And he was the first to say, what's the worst thing that can happen? The worst thing that can happen is you get to come home. Just go. So he was always kind of very supportive of taking a chance, taking a risk, and kind of pushing yourself a little bit.
Yeah. And I think sometimes too, we don't realize how we grow up in those little conversations. Even they probably started when you were little and you don't even remember.
Right.
It's like, maybe you weren't ready to ride a two-wheel bike yet. He was like, nope, you got to try it, and all those little nuggets of wisdom and those nudges and those beliefs in us that are so important. So I love hearing about that. It's definitely probably has some to do, probably a lot to do with your success. Yeah,
absolutely.
And so what about, along the way, we were talking before we started filming, and, hopefully that in technology, we've come a long way as far as women in the workplace, but clearly still have a little ways to go. And so would you mind sharing, was it a straight shot from when you got out of college, you first started, and now you're Senior Vice President at Dell, or were there any challenges or bumps along the way?
Well, I, like most people, it's never a straight line, it's a little bit of a zigzag, and never always had the next opportunity figured out. But, I did study engineering. So it was important to me that, or at least I thought, that I really wanted to do kind of technical work at first. And they really wanted me to go into sales right away. And I didn't want to go into sales. So I went into kind of pre-sales engineering, quickly learned that I would be good at sales. I'm a people person. I'm a good communicator. I like to solve problems. And when you're in sales, you're really helping solve problems for your customers. So, I think that's how I ended up, but I had to do it on my own, even though they really were trying to steer me that way. I kind of felt like I studied hard. It was hard work. I wanted to make sure I used it. And I still laugh. In one of my interviews, I said, no, I don't want to go into sales. I want to use my languages. And they said French, German, and Spanish. And I said, no, Cobalt, Fortran, and C. It was like nerd alert.
Yeah.
So, and I've done sales and now marketing, and I've embraced every opportunity. And sometimes it was, I learned later that, people would come and ask me to kind of just go work on something. And I was like, why me? And they're like, you're a good problem solver. Like, I didn't feel like I had the background or the experience, but they're like, you'll get in there and you'll figure it out. You're resourceful. You're a problem solver. And I didn't know that about myself. Later kind of appreciated that. So you asked, how did I get here? Sometimes it's, you're asked to take a left turn, please kind of go over here and work on that because we need a fresh set of eyes. We need a fresh perspective, and you're not really sure why. And I like solving problems. So I get stimulated by just learning and new things. And, honestly, in technology, I do share this with my team that, if you're not comfortable with change, you might be in the wrong industry. Like we've all self-selected this industry, which is constantly evolving and innovating and dynamic.
Quickly.
And the pace. And so you need to kind of be wired a little bit to want to get into that. And I think, just that mindset and that willingness to kind of jump in is kind of how I've landed here. It definitely was not a direct path. Some of it was, requested by others to just go, why don't you go do this or go do that? So I've kind of had a really blessed opportunity of touching different facets of the business, which helps you kind of have a holistic view, kind of end to end on the business.
Yeah. So I want to really spotlight something that you've said, because I've heard it before from other amazing leaders such as yourself. And that is, someone said something to me, and then I didn't think of myself as that way, but I just said, okay. And I tried it. And so the mindset, if we're going to talk about the mindset, it's really having a courageous mindset. And, I always look at courage as kind of the backside of fear. World-class performers have fear as well, but the difference is that they have it and they decide to go forward anyway. I imagine that it was a little scary once you did say yes, and like, how is this going to work out?
Absolutely.
So you had fear, but you decided to proceed anyway. And so for anyone watching, if someone notices something in you, at least what I'm hearing from Cheryl's, she was really great at, trusting the other person and also trusting yourself.
And some of it is, we're all human. So that little vulnerability and insecurity and, oh, I don't know enough. I don't have experience in this. I'm competitive. So it does kind of energize you to just dig in and try harder. And just that grit, that energy, that work ethic, you're learning it along the way, but that's actually as valuable as anything, right? I mean, so I think, like I said, sometimes you just need to hear it. You don't think of yourself that way. I like to think, I don't think of courageous, but maybe I am, but I'm an optimist. So I definitely am a glass half full kind of person. So I don't go into something and think the worst. I go in and it's like, okay, how do I solve this problem? So I'm more a problem solver. What do we do? Where do we go? And I do think that mindset helps.
Yeah, I love that you point that out. It sounds like you're not a what if person, you're an imagine if person.
Yeah.
Not like, what if I fail? What if it doesn't work out? What if I disappoint someone? Which is, easy for a lot of us to go that way, but you're more of, imagine if this does work out. Imagine if I'm amazing. Imagine if I figure it out.
Right.
And so I really love that. And so, when it comes to, advice that maybe you would have given, yourself earlier in your career, is there something that you wanted to share with everyone?
Yeah, I always say if I went back and, had a conversation with the 20-year-old version of Sheryl, it would be trust your gut. I think it's so natural that we don't have the confidence in ourselves. so early in our career because we either haven't had the experiences, we haven't had the failures, we haven't had the challenges, but your natural instinctive judgment is not ever going to fail you. Like, trust your gut. The way you instinctively feel about either a business choice, a relationship choice, a decision, it was right then as much as it is right now. I just have more experience and a lot of years and whatever to trust that instinct. So and it was exactly right then too. So I absolutely would say, trust your gut. If you have a red flag or you have an uneasy feeling about something, you do for a reason.
And then I think along the same line, since you were so great at this, if you have something in your gut, like, I should go for this.
Yes.
Then, like, do your homework and make sure it's a calculated choice, but maybe act on it before your head gets in the way.
Yeah, exactly. And I think part of it is prioritizing. I was in sales for so many years. I'm a competitive person. I like winning. I like learning. I like stretching. I like getting better, and absolutely go for it, because what's going to happen? Like I said, you're going to either learn from it. You may not get as far as you want, but you're going to be better for it. Or you could hit a home run. You never know. What have you got to lose?
Yeah. Imagine if it works out.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly.
And so along those lines, today we're really talking about the importance of being authentic, and you embody that. And so can you tell us a little bit about your philosophy about being authentic, and also why it's so important to our personal brand?
Yeah, I'm a huge believer in that, because I always tell people I'm a girly girl in a man's world for sure. And I just have never shied away from it. I don't know why, but I was a cheerleader, and I'm an engineer, and I like my bling and glitter and grit is what, everybody says about me. And I just think I don't know how to be anything but that. And I think it helps foster trust and confidence and predictability. Like, if you're always consistent in who you are at home, at work, with your friends, in any setting, then that just fosters credibility. It fosters trust. And I'm a big believer you have to be competent at what we do. Like, you have to have a command of our discipline and what we do. But if you have the merit and the credibility, I just do it in high heels, and I do it with bling, and that's just me. So I just think it's all about connecting. We're talking about it at this conference, actually, that, it's a relationship business, and you're building relationships digitally now in many of these settings. And it's all about connecting and being trustworthy. And I think authenticity is the best word of, are you really you?
Yeah, and that's a good question that we should ask ourselves. Am I really being me? And so has it, I feel like this is a silly question. I was going to ask, has it served you? But clearly it has. And so I also want to talk about the other side of that, because if we are trying to fit into a world in a way that's inauthentic, like we're trying to be part of the bro club, and be like the guys, it's got to cause some internal turmoil as well. I
think it would be exhausting. I just, it's hard enough, right? You look at the pace that we're all operating, and, those of us that are mothers, you're managing home life, your family life, your work life. I can't imagine trying to be somebody I'm not. And I think that would ultimately show, like, the guy, beyond just what's acceptable now for business casual to wear at work. We all started when we had to wear blue suits and everything, but, we were doing it in high heels then. And, I'm not fooling anybody that I'm not. So anyway, I think that back to my comment about my dad, part of that was probably just I was allowed to be myself and encouraged and rewarded to just go for it and take chances. And maybe that's just confidence, but I don't think being an imposter or trying to fit in to be what you think they want you to be, it's exhausting. Save your energy for other things.
Yeah, I really love that. So just what I'm hearing that, I really wish I would have heard this a couple decades ago, but it's you do you.
Yeah.
You do you, and then but also have some substance behind it.
Right.
Like, sharpen the saw, make sure that that you are authentic, and speak up for what you want, and make sure that maybe you fill in the gaps, and make sure that you are really well, prepared, and to be confident and competent.
Yes.
There's something called the competence loop that one of my mentors talks about, but it's, the more competent you are, the more confident you become.
Absolutely. That's true.
And just follow your gut and do it in an authentic way to you.
Absolutely. And be a team player. Nobody likes a jerk, right? Whether you're authentic or not. But if you're a collaborator and you're a team player and you're really working with others, do you, like you said, very authentically. You're not self-serving. You're not out to try and, gain success at the expense of anybody else, but you're doing it your way. And I just think that diversity of thought, diversity of style, diversity in general in a team just makes a richer, better outcome, honestly. And to your point, if you have substance, competence, you have the merit, you'll ultimately have the credibility and respect, and people can respect you in your authentic you.
Yeah, such amazing wisdom. So I asked a few minutes ago about a call to action, but if there's one thing that you want to leave everyone with, what would that be?
I would say, I already said, trust your gut. And I would say, don't be afraid to take a risk or take a chance, because I think that is where growth happens. And even if it's personal growth, you may learn something new about yourself, and you may be able to address or overcome a challenge you didn't think you could, but you also will be able to pull your team with you. You'll be able to be leaning into opportunities at work. And in this industry, and certainly right now, there's so much disruptive change happening right now. You really need to have, the energy and the mindset of embracing it and leaning in. So I would say, don't be afraid to take a chance, take a risk, do something that might feel like a left turn in what you've done, and you have no idea what, doors may open or opportunities you may find.
I think that is amazing and timely advice, because in this age where technology, I feel like it's changing even quicker than it has. And, rather than maybe put some efforts into worrying and wondering, put those efforts, it sounds like it's a really good time to embrace change, take some chances, and listen to your gut. Sheryl, thank you so much for sharing your wisdom. I look forward to listening to your session tomorrow. And I also look forward to following your journey.
Oh, thank you, Sheryl. I look forward to hearing you tomorrow as well. Thanks.